Okay, hello again. This is now Astrology for Adults number 3. So this, I'm just going to dive in, and I've got a clock this time, so I'm not going to, the camera's going to keep working, unless the battery dies. But anyway, so this is a horoscope. And so the houses are the self in the first, money and values in the second, communication, brothers and sisters, the third, the home, the father, in the fourth, the fifth is children, sixth, sickness and service, the seventh is partnerships, the eighth, death and regeneration, the ninth, philosophy, foreign travel, higher education, the 10th is business and the mother, 11th, friends and hopes and aspirations, and the 12th is karma, we can say, to keep it simple. So the thing is, the second house is the second. It's the second because it's the second from the first. It's the value sense of the person, of the native. The third house is the third from the first. How you communicate and what you communicate about. And the thing is, you can begin with any house. And so if we take, for instance, if we put the seventh on the ascendant, then the seventh describes the marriage partner. The eighth house would describe the value sense of the marriage partner. If that would be something that you want to know about, what does my husband or wife think? What do they care about? You look to the eighth house of the natal chart, because that is the second. That's the second from the seventh. It's the value sense of the marriage partner. If you want to know how the marriage partner communicates, communication, the third house matter, 1, 2, 3, your natal ninth house would describe the communication of the person you would marry. Because we're not going to marry anybody. We have to marry, or we end up marrying and maybe divorcing, but nevertheless we marry them, the person who is described by your seventh house. Because most people, if you go into a room, most people you don't find attractive or interesting or marryable. But the one or the few people that you do have an attraction for or an attraction to correspond with your seventh house. And if we take the seventh on the first, we can know about who you'll marry, because that's them. That's their values. That's how they communicate. That's their home, their children, their sickness, their marriage partner, their death and regeneration, their philosophy, their business, their friends, and their karma. Using your natal chart, all you do is turn it upside down. And a long time ago, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez were a couple. It was Ben, can't remember now, Ben Affleck and Angelina Jolie, I think, at the time, whatever it was clear he was never going to marry her, because if you took Ben's natal chart and turned it upside down, it didn't describe the person he was expected to marry. Can't remember who it was. Anyway, you get the idea. It's to show you can take a natal chart and turn it to the seventh on the first to know who you're going to marry and what marriage will be like. Is it going to work or not? Or you could take your third house and put the third house on the ascendant. So the fourth becomes the value sense of your brothers and sisters. The fifth becomes the way you talk, or the communications of brothers and sisters. So I want to give you an example of this from, I'll just use this, my natal chart, or some of it anyway, because if I do this, my 10th house cusp is 4 Capricorn. The 11th is 21 Capricorn. The 12th is 16 Aquarius. This should be readable, I hope. And this is 28 Taurus. So I'll get to that in a moment. So that's my natal chart. So if we want to know about my career or my business, what we're doing is we're looking at the chart and we're extracting facts and information about the individual. And you put all the facts together and you end up with a conclusion or with the story of the person's life when it comes to that particular area of life. So my business, I've got 4 Capricorn here, right? We probably know that Capricorn's an earth sign and represents practicality, among other things, right? So my business, my career, it has to be practical. I mean, I complain about the way people talk about the signs of the zodiac because it sounds good, but it's not actually realistic. It's not practical. And this is one of the reasons for when you're looking at planets and signs, use the Robson book because he gives you a few keywords, and we'll get to that in a bit. But you're better to, it's like a quotation. If you get a quote from somebody like Goethe said, can't remember, man is essentially good but darkly driven. So we are by nature good, but we're darkly driven. So you could spend, or you could write 3 pages of explanation, but by the time you get to the end of it, you've lost the meaning or the sense of the quote. Whereas a short quotation or a key word or two will give you a good starting point rather than take the sign Capricorn and talk for 20 minutes or 2 hours about Capricorn. So my business ought to be practical. So Saturn, Capricorn's ruled by Saturn, and I've got Saturn over here at 1 Virgo. Okay? So you could say my business is to be of service to other people. And Saturn is the teacher and Virgo's the teacher. So I'm going to be a teacher. You could have said to me many years ago. And as it happened, the first job I got, I'd finished university, I didn't know what to do. And I thought, I'm going to take the first job I can find anywhere in the world. And it was a teaching job in Switzerland. And I applied and got it. Why did I get it? Because I've got the rule of the 10th in the 6th in Virgo, and it's ruled by Saturn. So that's one way. That's one way of putting together what the answer is to the question, depending what house you're referring to. But remember what I said about you can renumber the houses. If we put the 10th on the ascendant, and we want to know about this is my career, this is the value sense, how I talk about it, the final outcome, and so on. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Saturn is in the 9th from the 10th. And the 9th is publishing, among other things, in higher education. So I always wanted to write a book. And so why? You can say everybody wants to write a book, but I actually did end up, at this point I've got 4 tarot books and a book on Hamlet or Act 1 of Hamlet. So I actually followed what the chart showed if you renumber the houses, right? So we can look at, so we get basic facts and basic information, business, also wanting a business practicality, teaching in a foreign country, because I went to, first job I had was when I went to Switzerland, a foreign country, because I was Scottish. And then later I moved to Amsterdam, and I ended up creating this job teaching English to the staff who couldn't speak English at the Hilton Hotel in Amsterdam. So, you know, that's, again, the 9th house. But Saturn's in Virgo, and Virgo happens to be ruled by Gemini. I've got Gemini in the 3rd house cusp, and I've got Mercury in Gemini. Right, so I want a business, I want to publish, and so or teach, whatever it happens to be. And it's because Saturn's in Virgo, it goes to Mercury in Gemini, and Gemini is on the 3rd house cusp. So what do? I write and I talk. And what am I doing right now? I'm teaching an astrology class, and I'm talking about it and recording it, and so on. So what you do is you take the natal chart and you have a particular house on a cusp, a particular cusp on the ascendant, and then you read the details of the life, not what you think about the person, but what the chart shows about that individual. And you put the facts that you gather and you put them all together and you get a story, or you get a certain conclusion. So with business, my business was not going to be, I don't know, a swimming instructor or what else could you have? Or be in sales and marketing, or working in a bank. None of that ever appealed. None of that ever happened. And so that's what we do. And so I wanted to give you, there is Paul McCartney for 2 p.m. And this is what Kepler College and those people, I mean, the people connected with Kepler College think or say is Paul McCartney's chart. Because somewhere somebody said he's born at 2 p.m. So if we look at it in the same way that we looked at, I forget the last time, but he's got Virgo rising. So in order to know about Paul himself, and I think we probably nobody watching this has actually met Paul McCartney, so we can't really know what he's like. But if this chart's correct, then he has Virgo rising. And one thing I should mention is, decanates. So you've got 30 degrees in every sign, right? 30 degrees. Divided into 3 10-degree portions. So 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. This is the first decanate from the beginning of the sign for the first 10 degrees. So if you take Leo, right? First decanate Leo is a pure Leo. Between 10 and 20 is the next fire sign, Sagittarius. Between 20 and 30 is the next fire sign, Aries, right? So that gives you an idea. So I'm saying here with Paul McCartney, he's got Virgo rising, Virgo ruled by Mercury, but it's the, 23? So it's the Taurus decanate of Virgo, ruled by Venus. So if you want to know about Paul, you study Mercury, which is retrograde in Gemini, and Venus, which is direct in Libra. Is that right? Oh, in Taurus, rather. I was thinking of Venus. Okay, so he's a combination of Mercury in Gemini, retrograde, and Venus in Taurus, in the Virgo decanate of Taurus. So, if we want to use that, there it is. Okay, so if you look up Mercury and Virgo in the Vivian Robson book, I wrote down 3 words from it: clever, shrewd, and argumentative. And so that's something about the character of the self of Paul McCartney. He was clever, and I mean, he wrote an opera, he wrote classical music, and he wrote all those songs, and he wrote music, and he wrote lyrics on his own, as well as with John Lennon, that is. Not me. Okay. But shrewd is another word for Mercury in Gemini. Is that true? Is Mercury in Gemini shrewd? So what you're doing is you're getting some ideas about Mercury in Virgo, in Gemini. And it means that the next time you come across a chart with somebody with Mercury in Gemini, you've got a starting point to figure out if it's actually true or how much of it is true. So shrewd. If you remember what happened when the Beatles split up and Alan Klein became their business manager, Paul didn't want him as a business manager, maybe because he recognized that Alan Klein wasn't what he said he was. And years later, John Lennon said Paul was right. Anyway, so we've got some ideas about Paul. The other thing is we've got Venus in Taurus, kind, humane, and obliging. And I was struck by the word humane because remember he married Linda, who was an animal rights activist. Why did he marry Linda? Maybe partly because she, in her own way, described the kind of person he would want to marry. So the point of all this is to take Paul's chart and turn it upside down. And we're going to read and see if this describes Linda. And also the 5th house here is the first child. The second child is the 7th. The third child is the 9th, and so on as you go around. So the first child actually was Linda's child. So Stella, the second child, Stella, the fashion designer, was the second child. So Linda and Stella should have characteristics in common. And if we take the natal chart and turn it upside down, what this is describing Linda and Stella, and I can't find it. Okay, so I'm stuck because I don't think this is right. Does it describe Linda? Because this is Linda, and that's her career. And what have we got here? Sagittarius. So is this Linda's career? We've got the Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter down here in the 4th. She worked at home. Linda was the chief photographer for the Fillmore East, I think, in Los Angeles. She was a well-respected, well-known photographer in her own right before she ever married Paul. Stella became world-famous fashion designer with Chloe, I think it was. Maybe she's got her own brand, or maybe she started with her own brand and then she joined Chloe after she'd had some success on her own or by herself. Somehow this chart, with the ruler of this 10th in the 4th, and it's also the Leo decanate up here, ruled by the Sun, also in the 4th. So just by looking at people like the chart because the Sun's in the 10th and it's in Gemini, so you've got this public communicator. And also, if you look here, we get Neptune in the 1st house, which is maybe a musician, because Neptune is, music and art and all the rest of it. Although I don't think Paul did much art or has done much art. He's more of a songwriter and a musician, which is Neptune by all means. But it's people liked it because the Sun is up here and Jupiter there as well, indicating somebody who would be a public communicator in the public eye, known for his writing. But Mercury's retrograde. Does that make him shy and retiring as well as being able to perform in public? But he's not a sort of crazy self-promoting individual as you might get from the Sun in the 10th. So, but it was when I turned, as I mentioned last time, I thought that Paul had Pisces rising, and that's a 2 a.m. birth time. But now it's been overtaken by 2 p.m. But really, is it 2 p.m.? I don't think so. Partly because, 2 p.m. I'm thinking about the 2 a.m. chart here. So if you look, because a chart, if it's accurate, is going to give you actual facts about the native and about their life. And two examples, we've got Stella and Linda shown by the 7th house. And they're have I got it the wrong way around? No. So that's them, and that's upside down. And so that's them, and this is the 10th here. And it really doesn't describe either of them in terms of career, and it ought to. And this is, when I show you the 2 p.m., so the 2 a.m. chart that I gave you the information for last time, it's the 18th of June 1942 in Liverpool at 2 p.m., this one, which is wrong, I think. And the 2 a.m. chart is very different. It's Pisces rising. Is it? Yeah, it's Pisces rising. And among other things, what have we got over here? Okay, so this is the method where you look at a cusp, you ask a question, tell me about the native, tell me about what they care about, and you look at the 2nd house and the 3rd house and so on. And then you figure out, or you come up with various facts about what that chart shows in that area of life for that person and see if it fits. Because also maybe take a look at the Wikipedia short biography of Paul McCartney and get some facts about his life, and then see if this chart here verifies what the information gives. And then next time in lesson 4, we'll look at the 2 a.m. chart, and we turn it upside down and we see that it just gives a totally different story about Stella and Paul and Stella and Linda. And it also, what the information you get from the 2 a.m. chart turned upside down really does describe the fame and prominence of his marriage partner, because this one doesn't. It turned upside down. I don't think it worked at all. So that was it for the moment. Hopefully the battery hasn't died. And I'll see you in a few days, so have a nice time, okay? Bye-bye.